Recently, I had the opportunity to try out the Sigma 200-500 f2.8, a lens so monstrous it eats other lenses for breakfast. The lens comes with a dedicated x2 teleconverter, so it is actually named 200-500/400-1000. On a Canon, you can see that the maximum aperture capable is in fact f2.8. However, when using the lens with the metabones on a Sony for instance, the lens will actually open up as wide as f2.7. This holds true all the way to 500mm as well. f2.7 isn't just the metabones miscommunicating with the lens either. Here you can see the aperture blades fully retracting. This extra fraction of a stop is still present when we add on the extender. f5.6 is the maximum aperture on a native Canon camera, whereas on the Sony it is f5.4, even at 1000mm. Against a uniform background such as this, you can see that this extra fraction of a stop does indeed have an effect on exposure. The lens uses large noisy motors to shift both the focus and zoom up and down its length. Before doing some proper filming with the lens, I decided to take it out for a quick test shoot for some stills spying on a neighbouring country. I quickly learnt that the most practical way of transporting this lens was in a 90-litre backpack and not in its humongous pelly case. Whilst the official instructions actually say that it takes at least 2 people to mount this lens to a tripod, I found it quite possible to do just by yourself. The lens doesn't always communicate nicely with the metabones, sometimes registering the wrong aperture and sometimes not registering any aperture at all. Whilst metadata in photos reflects the focal length accurately to the millimetre, the on-screen display on the lens doesn't. Autofocus through the metabones is neither fast nor accurate. For the test shots, I used manual focus with focus magnification and a 2-second self-timer. Here's f2.7. You can begin to see why Sigma actually limited this lens to f2.8. At f2.8, the sharpness improves a little, but it's not much better. In this shot, you can see the dramatic vignetting at f2.7 as well, compared to f2.8. Look at the detail in the brickwork. You can see a minor improvement by f2.8 at 500mm. At 1000mm, we can actually read signage. This was shot at around 2 kilometers away. However, at this distance, it's clear that there's another limiting factor at work here, and not just the lens itself. The atmosphere. I need to test this lens with a closer subject. To call this lens difficult to use for video is frankly an understatement. You actually have to mount the camera to the lens and not the other way around. For anything larger than a DSLR or a mirrorless, you really need to do some serious rigging to get the whole thing together. Getting the camera onto a tripod is a much more difficult affair, one that was massively helped by Bright Tangerines quick release plate that they kindly loaned me for this test. Sliding on the end of dovetail the traditional way is simply not possible with one person. The lens features 2 holes in its handle to sight your target with. However, using a video camera, the camera's own handle often obscures this. I have a solution, however. A red dot sight, typically used on rifles, is a fantastic solution for quick target acquisition with both eyes open and without having to align any 2 posts or holes, as with traditional sights. Carrying this lens once it's built for video, however, is not easy. You can't carry this far from your vehicle.
go.
We decided to move location again, by which point I had realised that it's simply easier to break the camera down and put the lens back in the backpack. We had come here to film ospreys.
Go.
I did have the opportunity to try this lens with a native Canon DSLR. Autofocus was reasonable for a lens this size, but most importantly, it was accurate. Here's a sample shot at 500mm f2.8. And here's one at 1000mm wide open f5.6. As my time with the lens came to an end, I began to wonder, what is the most distant object I could possibly detect?